Product Leaders. My name is Henda Zurayer, and today I'm very excited to have Mike Ottavi-Brannon. He's speaking to us about his learnings, his product management learnings, from going from a product manager to founder. Mike is currently the co-founder of Useful, his company. Before that, he was a product manager at Amplitude, which is a software company that helps companies build better products. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today. We're very happy to have you answer our questions.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And for those who are watching us live, please feel free to engage, type any comments or questions that you have for Mike. For my first question for you is, how did you get into product management and what was your journey like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the journey into product management was perhaps somewhat atypical. I think there's a lot more amazing resources available now to learn about the craft and I think great doorways into the field. But for me at the time, I actually started my career after college in investment banking. So I studied systems engineering in undergrad and made the foolish choice of choosing my career based on what salaries were paying the most according to the survey data provided at school. And so, landed on investment banking as that role. Spending a year there, I shortly realized that it was not the profession for me and, was soon looking to do something a bit different. Now, the exact Google search terms that I put together that ultimately landed me in the field of product management, I wish I could remember and share with you. But I think to put it in a nutshell, I wanted to feel like I was closer to actually building something. I wasn't, technically talented enough to be an engineer, and it wasn't how I saw myself spending my day to day. But I wanted to feel like I was actually building something, as I said before. And the other aspect of it was I really wanted something that would enable me to work more collaboratively or cross-functionally and have the opportunity to interface with a lot of different teams and people within a company that I was working for. And somehow that sort of random searching of terms landed me at Kabam, which is a mobile gaming studio where I first started my career in product management. And there I had the opportunity to work on the Hobbit games around the same time that the Hobbit movies were coming out, which was a pretty exciting start to my product management career.
Very nice. And can you tell us about your current company and what do you love in general about product management?
Yeah, absolutely. So company I co-founded is called Useful, and Useful is software that makes it easier for product managers to more regularly talk to their customers and extract insights from the conversations. It's a business and a problem area very much born out of my personal lived experiences and the time that I spent at Amplitude. But to answer your question more specifically around what do I love about product management, I think there's a couple of different things. And what's been super exciting is that I've had the opportunity to work in both B2C product management starting at Kabam, and then, of course, more recently spending a lot of time in B2B product management. I think one of the things that I love the most about the role is just talking to customers. So perhaps it's unsurprising that I'm starting a business in that space, but I think the opportunity to build relationships with a multitude of different people and understand their pains and needs and actually build products to address them is something that's really rewarding and one of the aspects that I love the most about the job. I think the other part of it that's really exciting is the idea of empowering other people. As a PM, I don't ultimately own the solution, but the way I view my role is ultimately to set the context for the rest of the team to be creative and develop and design the best solutions to solve the problems that are important for our customers. And so to be in a position to provide that context, to build that empathy, to tell that story is really, really exciting. So when you see the team around you going out to do great work and deliver value to customers, it's a really rewarding position to be in. The other thing that I'll say is I think it's a role that teaches you to be genuinely curious. I think it's important to, especially when talking to customers, to continue to ask the question why, perhaps in more hospitable ways than just why. But at the end of the day, you're really trying to unpack people's needs and their motivations behind the asks that they provide. And I think just as a general skill, it teaches you to be a just more inquisitive person and to bring that curiosity to a lot of different aspects of your life, even, outside of the professional context. I think it teaches you to be a better conversationalist, and just, continue to be inquisitive about the different people that you meet and the experiences that you have. So a lot of great experiences to reflect on. And I think it's a fabulous role.
Yeah. And is that curiosity skill is one of the main things that people talk about that makes a great product manager. Is that something that you had, or is that something that you developed?
That's a good question. Definitely something that I think developed for me. I think there was some semblance of curiosity, certainly early on in my career, but I think the art of interviewing and asking great questions and learning to, just how to ask great questions and interview people, I think is definitely a skill that has matured over time. I think one of the things that got me into product management as a career was actually a demonstration of some curiosity. So after I left investment banking, I, although poorly, taught myself to do a little bit of coding and kind of built this little mixology app that would help me figure out what cocktails or drinks to make based off of the items I had on my shelf. And I never actually produced it or published it or anything like that, but it was just, exploring something that was of interest to me at the time. It was making cocktails. But I think that innate curiosity enables you to, tell a good story and demonstrate that you have a willingness and eagerness to learn, which I think is super important. And then when it comes to actually, talking to customers and interviewing them and understanding their needs, I think when you approach the conversation less from a transactional sense and more from one where you're genuinely trying to just get to know somebody, understand their experiences, where they're coming from, the set of circumstances that have shaped their worldview, and you just are legitimately interested in understanding that more, it's a very organic, I think, conversation that you end up having with an individual. And out of that conversation comes a lot of really valuable information and insights to inform the decisions that you're trying to make as a product team. So it's a long-winded way of saying there's some innate curiosity, and you definitely need that as a PM, but it's one of the skills that I think you just continue to develop and nurture over time. And I think that's what's exciting about the role, is that it's one of those kind of evergreen skills that you can continuously get better at.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing your journey into your curiosity. And now you're a founder. What inspires you to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that. And I think if I were to boil it down, it really comes down to a passion for building and solving problems that, at the very least, from your point of view, have gone unsolved. And I think this is kind of one of the things that's really drawn me to startups in general, is the opportunity to be more directly involved in having a positive impact on the lives of your customers. And I think from my perspective, like I was saying before, Useful is very much born out of lived experiences and challenges that I had in trying to talk to customers more regularly, extract insights from those conversations, and felt that it was something that had gone unsolved, and there was a way better way to execute that. And so, wanted to solve something that I thought was an unmet need. And I think the opportunity to be so directly involved in ultimately building something that improves our customers' lives at the end of the day is an incredibly rewarding thing. And so it's very much, at the end of the day, just born out of passion for the problem space and the people that you're solving that problem for. And it's ultimately what gets you out of bed every morning and keeps you up late at night.
And going into my next questions, what are the lessons that you've learned from product management or from your previous roles in product management that have helped you build this company?
Yeah, well, the first is, it'd be remiss if I didn't say it, it's the importance of talking to customers and doing so on a continuous basis. I think that was one of the things that was just drilled over and over and over again into me during my time at Amplitude, and something I care deeply a lot about and think about a lot on a going forward basis. So that's certainly one of them. I think the second piece is how to de-risk your assumptions. A former version of me, actually even before joining Amplitude, started another company in the on-demand cannabis delivery space, and I just jumped straight into building. without doing any real validation or de-risking of assumptions. And one of the lessons that I learned during my time at Amplitude, and this may sound like common knowledge now, but certainly for a younger version of me, it wasn't, the importance of de-risking your assumptions and validating without actually building things. And there's a lot of different techniques that you can use to do so, but that was another great lesson that I've carried forward with me. I mentioned this before, but as a PM, I don't view myself as the owner of a solution, but instead as the owner of the problem, and providing that context and building the empathy on the team. And I think what that means more specifically is being very first principles in your thinking, and really deeply understanding the customer, their needs, their problems, their context and motivations, rather than being myopically focused on a specific solution. So that's another one. Good storytelling. As a PM, you're often a manager without authority, and the way that you encourage action is through influence. And I think one of the most effective ways to influence not only your immediate team in, say, design and engineering, but also cross-functionally and go to market, even upwards to leadership, is through good storytelling. And certainly for me and what we're doing is useful, and certainly the things that I learned at Amplitude, the importance of putting the customer at the center of that story. And so I think being able to tell a cohesive narrative, put people in the shoes of the customer, and to build that empathy and understanding and appreciation for the problem and why it matters to solve, is a really valuable skill and lesson. And then the final thing, this is kind of a silly one, but it's the importance of using your own product. And I think it's oftentimes, when you're building something, you don't actually use it, and you don't actually get to experience what your customers experience. And I think typically the way in which a PM uses the product that they're working on is for the purposes of, validating some spec, or, doing some QA, or trying to find a bug, but not actually using it with the intention or deliberateness that a customer might try to use it. And that was something I did a lot at Amplitude. I used Amplitude on Amplitude's products, or on Amplitude data. And, you'd be surprised the problems in the experience you'll uncover as a result of spending meaningful time with the deliberateness and intention of a customer and actually using your own product. And this is also true, I think, from a competitive perspective as well, doing some research into the space to understand, not necessarily like, oh, what else should we be doing, but just to have, an ear to the ground and a sense of other points of view on the space and market in which you're operating. So that's the final thing, I think, is the importance of using the product. Now, fortunately, what's kind of extremely meta about what we're building at Useful is it's software to talk to customers, and you best believe we're using our own product to execute that. So it's a very meta experience in and of itself.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important concept of actually using the product that you're building from not just a PM perspective, but as a customer perspective too. I think that's a valid and very useful point.
One more thing I'll say on that, one of the rituals that we did at Amplitude that definitely persisted for some time that I think was really important was have new hires do a product teardown. So they would document their experience as a first-time user, and note down their observations, things that they struggled with, things that they liked. And it was really powerful because everybody who went through this exercise was coming with different perspectives, different levels of acumen with respect to product analytics, different set of tooling that they may have used prior to joining Amplitude. And so you got a really good kind of distribution of the problems and things that people gravitated towards when it came to, documenting their observations. And it was a really powerful source of us, identifying opportunities for improvement for, the first-time user experience. And it was also a great way for, say a PM or designer or engineer, whomever it might be, to start to get their feet wet, if you will, within the prioritization process that the team they were joining operated in. So one of the ultimate objectives of going through this exercise was to identify, relatively lightweight, small improvement or optimization that one could make to the product. And so it was a way to kind of get them, into the motion, into the process of actually, identifying problems and, working through solutions with the team and ultimately delivering on them. So that was a I think, a fun ritual, rite of passage, but also I think a great way, as PMs to build empathy for the customer experience and put oneself in the shoes of the customer.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And just a reminder for those who are joining live, any questions that you have or comments, please feel free to type in the comments, and we'll share the questions with Mike to answer them. Going back to your current company and product management, what are some product principles that have guided you into building useful?
Yeah, absolutely. So by nature of the product, Useful is what we call a bottoms-up distributed product. So we sell into ICs, individual product managers, and our ultimate goal is to make them successful in what we would call single player mode. And then, once they find success, start to see horizontal adoption of the product across the organization. But importantly, we want somebody to be successful in single player mode. And so as a result of that, there's a couple of principles that we think a lot about. The first of which is sub 5 minute time to value. So if you think about product managers, we're all extremely busy people. We have a lot of different competing priorities, both at work and outside of work. And I think it's, any moment of friction, right, that a end user experiences in the product is a potential detractor and a reason why they may just choose to stop what they're doing and get back to whatever it is else that's distracting them or causing them grief. And so when somebody, onboards onto Useful, we want them to appreciate the value and what it's to be used for, to have a clear reason for why they would use this product, and importantly, come back to this product on an ongoing basis within the first 5 minutes. As part of that, there's a couple of other things that we think a lot about. Notably, the experience is designed around very discrete task completion. So I think what can be, really frustrating and daunting when using a product for the first time is that there's a multitude of different paths you can go down, or a bunch of different use cases and reasons you may want to use this thing, and it can be extremely overwhelming. And in the absence of having a clear sense of when and why you should use something, and there being a very clear path for that task to be completed, you run the risk of people, like I said, just not having the bandwidth or capacity in that moment in time to stay focused. So for us, Useful, that discrete task is creating a, what we call a highlight or a snippet from a transcribed conversation with a customer, and having a workflow optimized and designed for that discrete task completion. And then the final thing that I'll say is, upon accomplishing that task, it's very rewarding for one to execute that. So you feel a sense of delight, you feel a sense of accomplishment, you feel a sense of completion once you've gone through that workflow. And those are all just mechanisms to reinforce that behavior, have a very clear reason for when and why somebody should use the product experience, and for that value to be realized, effectively immediately, within signing up, but within the first 5 minutes or so.
Yeah. And moving forward with your experience, because you mentioned earlier that you built a mobile application before. You built another company before you worked as a product manager. When you compare your experience now, post product management and pre-product management knowledge, what were the major lessons that you had?
Yeah, a lot. I think, it's funny at the time. So just again, to reiterate the context, prior to Amplitude, I started an on-demand cannabis delivery company. This is in 2015. The short of it is I had no idea what I was doing. And it very much felt like we were falling forward. And I think candidly, in the face of a lot of unknown and uncertainty, it can feel like you're falling forward. But I was very, very green. And like I had mentioned before, I think one of the first mistakes that I made was just jumping straight into build, and not spending nearly enough time on understanding the customer, understanding their needs, what was important from a differentiation perspective, how they made their purchasing decisions, so on and so forth. And I think we could have avoided a lot of missteps, time spent on the wrong priorities, et cetera, had we spent more time doing that. I think the other lesson, though, is a little bit, it's at a slightly different altitude. And I think this touches on, one of the questions you asked before around, my motivations in entrepreneurship. You have to really be in love with the problem. And I think for anybody interested in starting a business, it's important that you're not in love with the specific solution, but rather the problem you're trying to solve that you believe is an unmet need in the market, and importantly, the people that you're solving for. Because the solution, can change, and there will be a lot of different variations, a lot of different ways to, attempt to solve a problem. And your original idea may not actually be the right one, or the way that your customers want, expect, or demand that problem to be solved. But if you actually have a passion for effectively the why behind all of your work, I think you'll end up being in a much better position to endure the inevitable hurdles, roadblocks, seemingly insurmountable challenges, really, really low days, and emotional drain that you'll face, because it isn't, always a smooth road. So I think for me, when I started that delivery company, it was for the purposes of just starting a business, and I was running, was kind of chasing that idea rather than falling in love with a problem space. Fast forward to where we are today, I've had a lot of different ideas. I have a lot of different interests, things that I get excited about. But if I reflect on, what is the lesson, right, from my time at Amplitude? What is the thing that I spent a lot of my time on that I thought was an unsolved problem? And it was this. It was talking to customers and making sense of the learnings that come out of that. And like I said before, it's also the part of the job that I love the most. It's something that I really deeply enjoy and have, gotten a lot of pleasure out of, just, having the opportunity to build relationships with people all around the world in different roles. And so I think having that passion, appreciation for the problem space is probably the biggest delta relative to where I was, several years ago in starting the business, and something that I would encourage anybody, thinking about starting a business to really think deeply about. And one of the best ways to do that is to just reflect on your own experiences, and to be inquisitive and curious about why things are the way that they are, and having, I think, the boldness, if you will, to challenge the status quo, and to say that it doesn't have to be this way, or there is a better way. I think everything that we interact with and experience is somebody else decided, right? It should be that way, and so that doesn't mean it's the best. And I think as a PM, like we were talking about before, that inquisition, that curiosity that you have, I think those are great skill sets to apply to your own life and set of experiences. As you'll, I think in doing so, uncover opportunities that others may miss. And that doesn't mean it's a business, to be clear. There's, certainly more validation and, market viability that one needs to assess. But I think it's a great way to kind of seed ideas, and a great sort of intrinsically motivated place to start, rather than like, oh, let's start a business. Think about problems that you experience that you're passionate about. I think that can be a really powerful way to generate ideas and find something that you could see yourself sinking, 5, 10, 15, 20 years of your career into.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful advice. And it's a different perspective, when you think about it. Where most people start companies because, like you said earlier, they want to start a company, or they're focusing on their problem. But if you focus on, or the solution, sorry, if you focus on the problem, like you said, you get more motivated and find other solutions as well to add to the product.
Yeah.
Thank you. And are there any current challenges at Useful that you're trying to overcome, and can you share those with us?
How much more time do we have?
Hi.
I think no, I'm being cheeky. I think there's always, every day is different, especially in these very, very nascent stages. I'd say there's 2 things that I'm really focused on right now. Well, they're related. My top priority right now is building the team, and being really, really deliberate and intentional about the people that we bring together as part of this founding team. I think I have the, privilege and benefit of having been relatively early at Amplitude. And while I was not, we were about 30 or so people when I joined. And one of the things that was really apparent to me was the camaraderie, the trust, the cohesion of the founding group of people and the kernels that, I think set the foundation for, the subsequent kind of breakpoints in the scaling of the organization. And in chatting with, the founders there, they were very deliberate about culture. They were very deliberate about people and who they brought on board. And that same deliberateness was something that the earliest employees exhibited when they interviewed other people and brought others onto the team as well. So I'm spending a lot of time, surprise recruiting, and interviewing, telling the story, and bringing people on board that are really passionate, importantly, about what we're doing, and passionate about the problem space, excited to push boundaries with the high degrees of agency, on and on and on. But it's definitely where I'm spending the most time, and being really, really deliberate and intentional with the hiring, and not letting, the sort of urgency, if you will, and desire to get going and move really quickly and scale the team, all of that kind of stuff, come at the expense of, being deliberate and intentional about the people on board. So that's definitely the biggest challenge and priority at this point in time. There's also building the thing, but that's, the way I view my role and responsibility at this point is more so the product that I'm building right now is the team. And that's where I'm spending a lot of my time and focusing a lot of my energy and attention.
No, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, culture is so important. So thank you for making us aware of that as well.
Yeah.
And then we do have only a little bit more time left. What
Sure.
advice, you shared some advice earlier, but what
Mm-hmm.
other advice would you give to product managers who want to start their own company?
Yeah, lots of lessons and reflections. I think I'll just reiterate what I had said before. I think it really does come down to, don't do it because you just want to start a business. Do it because there's a problem that you care a lot about and nobody else is solving it, or the solutions that are out there today are insufficient. And it's something that, you believe is important, you believe will have a positive impact on people's lives, will improve, the world in some way. And it's something that you can see yourself, sinking your teeth into for a considerable amount of time. It's a very, very long journey. It's a very, very long road. And it's something that you want to be committed to. And I think one of the ways to remain committed is to be in love with the problem and why you exist. You don't exist as, or to be a thing or to be some sort of solution. You exist to solve a problem, and to solve that problem for a specific, ICP or set of customers. And so that's probably the most important thing. And I think one of the ways, like I talked about before, to identify what some of those might be is to be introspective, look at your own experiences, and in every step of your day, like every part of your journey, from like when you wake up to when you go to sleep, like think about what sucks about that, what could be better, what took longer than it should have, and to, I think, bring that level of inquisition to things that have seemingly been as they are for many, many years, and even things that are more recent, like it's likely an opportunity to improve and or optimize that. That doesn't mean it's a great business, like I said, but it is at the very least a great place to start and identify things that you can, at least on a personal level, empathize and resonate with. Then of course there's the homework and doing more validation and understanding if others feel the same way that you do, of course. But I think it's a worthwhile place to start. And if you can find yourself like identifying a problem and feeling obsessed about it, and it kind of continuing to eat at you and being top of mind and sort of being this distraction that's nagging you in the back of your head every time you see it or you think about it, like that's a pretty good signal that it's something that matters a lot to you. And if you start to feel that tug, listen to that and see how long that thread is and pull on it some more by talking to more people, doing the homework, getting out of the building. And I think that's how great ideas get started, and importantly, great and enduring businesses do at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing your journey and from becoming an investment banker to product manager to now co-founder, founder. So thank you so much and your lessons along the way.
My pleasure. I hope it was helpful. It's always happy to do things like this, and it's great that there's communities like this now for people to get together, share experiences, resources, and I think learn the craft of product management. It's a wonderful role. It's a lot of great work, and happy to support and be involved. So thanks for having me.
We appreciate your time. And for those who have questions for Mike, we've linked resources or links on how to reach him and where to reach him. Thank you so much, Mike. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And Michael, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a great week, y'all.
Bye.